This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about education. Is education a social equalizer or not? Many people believe that education is a social equalizer. Since which in part is true, but is not totally true. Education can be a social equalizer, but it depends on many other factors, which is why we need to have always an analysis, a trans-contextual analysis. There are no problems, if you go to the doctor, you might need a specialist, for a problem that you have. If you need to have a heart operation or surgery, you want a cardiosurgeon, a cardiologist, a surgeon that knows what he is doing. But in analyzing economic, political, social problems, you always need a transcontextual analysis, because it's not only about critiquing a system, but it's about understanding the system. So the education can be, and in many cases functions as a social equalizer, but alone it doesn't do the thing. You can see that before, in countries like the United States, the land of the free and the brave and the land of the opportunity, it was education. You could get a good education for free, and now you have to go into that to have a good education. So you are a young girl or boy, and before you have even you don't even might know what you are going to do with your life, or you might think you know, but you never really know. You are already into a huge debt just to get an education. So that is not that doesn't function as a social equalizer. It functions as debt enslavement. That's what it really is, not a social equalizer. So the opportunities, and by the way, education in general, especially in capitalist economies and capitalistic political systems, is you just prepare yourself to become a homo economics, which means that you are getting trained, indoctrinated, and instrumentalized to become a cog in the machine. It might be a higher cog, an important cog, like the professional managerial class. They have important jobs because they are the ones that manage the other ones. So they are the managers. So they might be rewarded. They might get much better rewards and privileges and everything. But nevertheless, they are serving a system, and the system has always masters. There is no system without masters. That's why the only master that we should have, it is the state. Do not demonize the state, because the state is the one that can guarantee us that we have access to free education, to free healthcare, to social housing, and even other programs that are essential for the collective well-being. We cannot have a society, we cannot have a functional society if this society is based on dog eat dog philosophy. Just social Darwinism is bullshit. Do not believe in it. It has those theories. They just, again, if we do not have a transcontextual analysis of these problems, we do not understand in why the society do not function to provide us. I mean, why is people working hard to getting so little money that they are in many cases not able to make ends meet? And never forget that we can justify anything and everything. Justification is not explanation. Okay? The people that try to explain, they try to be intellectually honest. They don't try to manipulate you. The ones that try to manipulate us as the ones that have something to gain, they want to use us. Manipulation is about using other people as tools to achieve goals. And we should not accept that as the rule, as the dominant culture. That is absolutely wrong. And by the way, education, if we take education as a social equalizer, we might not be able to see why people. We immediately justify that the ones that do not make it, in the sense that the ones that are not able to really make it at school, to have a higher education or a college degree or whatever it is, they are already considered inferior. And that means that so they are already classified as losers. So they might be considered stupid. They might consider having less no diligence, not being diligent, not being responsible, not having objectives. All that. Is that a complete lie? No, of course not. Because many of us, we all can be enthusiastic. Intellectual curiosity and enthusiasm is, I think all of us have it, okay? But we have it for different things and in different contexts. So context matters. How the programs, we cannot put a bunch of children, 20 or 30 children in a classroom and try to teach them the same and believe that they can be interested all in the same things and in the same way. Of course not. That doesn't work like that. What stimulates my intellectual curiosity and captivates my enthusiasm is not the same thing that works with other people and children. So we need to understand that sometimes, not many times, too often, many children fail because they do not, cannot be stimulated. They don't find. It's not about fun. I'm not saying that the classes need to be fun, but classes need to be stimulating. Besides the need for, we need a pedagogy that stimulates our intellectual curiosity, not makes us resist, because then if we don't like it, we start to resist, to create resistance, and then we don't learn. And then we just start to hate classes. And of course, we all are different, and there are children that they might not like. But that, I mean, if you don't like school, for example, because you don't feel, you are not an intellectual person, let's put it this way, you have not an intellectual tendency, that's nothing wrong with you. We can all be useful to society in so many ways. We cannot just be inferiorized, and called losers. Because that's an excuse to justify a hierarchical system that is dysfunctional and is profoundly unjust. There is no fairness about that. The rules of the system are rigged in favor to transfer the wealth upwards. Forget about trickle-down, so-called trickle-down economics. That's again bullshit. So education, that everything is political. Okay, that's important to understand, that there is nothing that is not political. That's why, I mean, the economy is political economy. Technology is also political. The decisions, the policies that the political choices that which technology or which research and development we are going to invest, whether is public-private or public-private partnership, is a political choice, and with goals. And it's important to know what are the goals. What do we want to achieve? Is it for the collective good? Is it for the long-term survival of humanity and even civilization? Or is it for the short-term profit-driven and power grab and control? And we need to be aware of it. We cannot have a system that is based only in short term, because then we do whatever it takes. It doesn't matter how much unnecessary suffering we cause, how much destruction of natural systems, ecosystems, and the environment and everything else, because what matters to us is to the bottom line. To get rich as fast as possible. Doesn't matter what damage we can cause. Social, ecological, economic, and and even spiritual. These people really think about spiritual life. Nobody can have a spiritual life with a system like this. We have to be alienated in order to survive, to live to engage in cognitive dissonance, because that is the only way to survive in this. To keep some sanity. Many people that talk about spirituality is middle class from rich countries, okay, where sometimes they belong to the professional managerial class, or they have rich parents or things like that. So they have their life is not very hard. There is no hardship in their life, so they can, we can talk about spirituality, and we can have to go to the spiritual what do they call it, retreats, I go. I mean, there is nothing wrong that we just really try. I mean, if people are honest and not they really search for spiritual meaning and everything, that's fine, that's wonderful. But the point is, if we do not understand the transcontextuality, that our lives cannot be separated from the lives of others, that there is this individualistic pursuit of freedom, of happiness, of spirituality, only about individuality. We do not care about the destiny of life, the destiny. What kind of damage do we cause with our actions or our lifestyles or whatever it is? So education, I mean, this is why we cannot have a system that doesn't understand the dialectic, the dialectic dynamic between the individual freedoms and the importance of the respect for the individual and the responsibility for the collective, that we know we belong to the collective. We are nothing alone. Individually an individual is meaningless, because nothing we know, nothing we learn, nothing we need can be obtained by us alone. We are social beings, and we cannot be anything but through the community, through the belonging to a community, through the belonging to a society. That is only money that allows us to think that we have power individually. Because money is not a physical thing. Money is a concept, is an abstraction. Money is a symbol, is a symbol. Money is part of a virtual reality. It was created by the human imagination to be used as a means of exchange, and to be used also as an accounting system. To have a record of debts, and not as the distortion of using money as a store of value or storage of value is a distortion. Is a distortion because it really transforms us. It really transforms us into dysfunctional beings that do not understand and that lose touch with our inherent sociability, with our inherent part of a community. Because therefore what counts is the accumulation of wealth. What counts is the private property. That's why the primacy. That's why capitalism is about the primacy of private property above everything else. Just listen to these birds. So we need to understand it carefully. Not just that's why transcontextuality is very important. We need an holistic approach, because I can I always like this example because, I can analyze eggs, what is a egg, what is the composition of the egg, blah, 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 what is the and flour and sugar and eventually other ingredients. But I can only understand what the cake is by mixing them together in certain proportions, and then I can have a cake. Otherwise I cannot have a cake. So that's the need to understand the cake, not just by analyzing the ingredients of the cake separated from each other, but by understanding the context by which the cake, in order to have a cake, what is the process. That's about understanding things as processes, not as things separated. That's why we cannot understand economy without understanding politics, without understanding what is the purpose of society. Why do we have societies? Because we are social beings. And economy is a subset of the society, and politics is how we organize both of them in order to make a system that is functional. And what is a functional society? Is a society that provides for the well-being, the collective well-being within the boundaries of nature, of the ecosystems. That's what it is. That's what the base of politics. At least the politics for an ecological civilization, an ecological, holistic civilization as I understand it. The purpose of education is not to be a social equalizer. The purpose of education is to make us knowledgeable citizens that acquire knowledge and have the political agency to participate in the society, not to be apathic, not suffer from political apathy, and not to understand what's the society where we live. Okay, education is not about, because we all are important for the economy. And by the way, I always emphasize it, the ones that do the jobs that nobody wants because they are too painful, too monotonous, they are dangerous, and all, so those are the ones that need to be praised, not the people that live in that have jobs. And so many people in the professional managerial class, what do they produce? What kind of usefulness do they have for society? None whatsoever. By the way, in many cases they damage society because they create falsehoods. They are responsible to create, to design systems and laws and narratives that are used to manipulate us, not to make us, not to make it more, not make reality more transparent to us, not make society easy to understand how society functions, how the economy functions, but the opposite. They are the ones responsible for the machine, for the PR machine that as a permanent campaign, propaganda campaign against us, against our ability to understand what's going on, to understand the transcontextuality of our reality, the layers, the dimensions, the multi-layer and multi-dimension of a complex system like a human society, especially in the modern times. And what's the purpose of all of it? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of our life? It's just to submit to the system, just to search for a job and waste our lives performing tasks that in many cases are useless. They do not provide any meaning. They are meaningless. But somebody is making money out of it. That's what matters. That's cui bono. The kind of the first question that we need to to pose. So every time somebody tells you that okay, education is a social equalizer, you just have to try to explain that actually it is not. It's more to justify a class system that keeps the majority of us near the poverty line, a little bit above or under, but near there, just to keep us in line, to make us to make us conform. That's the way wages are used to it's the modern way to keep people in a slave-like condition, is by keeping them with low wages, that we have to work hard. You do not have time or the energy or in order to look for answers and even to think about the right questions. You just want to, after your work, just want to have some leisure, something to distract you, something that just to make you not think about your life even, that you don't want to think why should you be obliged to live like that, to have a meaningless job, that if you have a meaningless job you should work less hours and get more money, not the other way around, because you should have more time to invest in yourself, in the sense to engage in activities that are meaningful for you, not for what other people tell you that is meaning. No, you need to find out what is meaningful for you, not waiting for others to tell you what's meaningful for you. So this is everything in society. When a society is owned, okay, when the society is owned by oligarchs and plutocrats, nothing that happens in society is random. It's always intentional. The policies have objectives, and the objectives is to reinforce the power of those elites, not to enhance democracy, not to give us participatory democracy or participatory economy, but the opposite, to enslave us, to weaken, to make us more dependent, and especially dependent on convenience, because it weakens us really and hurts us, and we need to react to it. The reason why education was sold as a social equalizer for upward mobility, it is obvious, because it really is needed for to strengthen and to serve the capitalist order, especially to the class structure society, the structure of a class-based society. You need accomplices. In the end, what we create with the notion of education as a social equalizer is accomplices. The majority, I mean, there is always exceptions, of course, but the majority will become accomplices of the system, because they are going to be real, because the system, which means the ones that really control the system, the oligarchs and plutocrats that control the system, they need those accomplices. They need a professional managerial class to do the bidding for them. That's how exactly it is. That's nothing. Of course, then they don't do any. No, it's not only about the bureaucracy and the technocracy. Okay, it's about the system in general. It's not exactly just about that, oh, there is a bureaucracy, because it's always, that's another point, a very important point. They demonize the bureaucracy of the state. They demonize the technocrats, but usually in order to say this is bad because this is promoted by the state. This is a government problem. No, it is not. It is a problem of a government and of a state that is controlled by the private sector. That's why we have partnerships, public-private partnerships. That's why we have socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. This is not just slogans. This is the reality. And if you do not understand it, I don't know what to, I mean, if we all, I mean, when I say you, I'm talking about us in general, we do need to understand this, how this paradigm really functions and how it hurts us. Otherwise, we are the losers. That's exactly a nice concept. We are the losers because they make us the losers. We are not born losers. I mean, actually we are, because we already are born in a class system. So we are losers because our social condition already transforms us into potential losers. So that's why we need to break this down. Not because this is not about this. Is what my analysis is okay. It's a radical leftist analysis, but it's not necessarily a communist, or it is. I mean, to me, it's obvious. It's so obvious. But this part, everything is so naturalized and normalized. So through the dominant culture, and I just listen. Okay. Okay. So this is part of the dominant culture. I always emphasize it again. Another point I emphasize a lot is is the fact that the United States was able to sell its project for a global imperial culture. So they were able to impose a dominant culture worldwide, basically everywhere. That's why the main culture, wherever you go in the world, that's this individualistic, consumeristic culture is everywhere, and people perceive reality through these lenses. That's how successful. That's one of the major success behind all the wars and coup d'etats and assassinations and regime change operations and everything else. To me, in my opinion, and the success of the dollar dominance and the dollar hegemony and everything else, the major success, the biggest success was the cultural imperialism, because it was imposed on the world as a form of soft imperialism, soft cultural colonialism. Soft imperialism, that means cultural colonialism, and it functioned, and it's still the dominant culture everywhere. Doesn't matter if you go to China, that's the dominant culture there. They have their identity, they have their traditions, they have everything else. Okay, that's true, but the dominant culture is the culture that was imported or imposed, or whatever you want to the word, the verb you want to use. It is the individualistic, consumerist, narcissistic also, but the culture that really a culture of vanity, a culture of shallowness, a culture of accumulation, a celebrity culture, infotainment culture, not a culture that allows you, a culture of with attention is the shortening of our attention span. That all that counts to transform us to commodify our lives, and to transform us to make us dependent on convenience, and to weaken all aspects of our understanding of reality, and to react to the oppression and to understand the roots of that oppression. That has been very successful, and we need to understand. That's one, in my opinion. It is part. If we want to understand our societies and civilization and why we are where we are, we need to understand how successful the American imperialist culture, the colonization of the world, how successful it was. Because the United States of America has all the advantages. After the Second World War, it was the United States represented more than half of the world economic output. So we cannot compare the power and the ability to influence the global order. We cannot compare that power and that influence from the U.S. influence to the USSR, because it's totally, it is There is no comparison. The USSR after the Second World War was a country destroyed. It was a federation of countries destroyed. And it was, we cannot compare. And it is amazing what they did, what they were able to do. There is many things, was it perfect or no, but taking in account the difficulties and the power of the main enemy, okay, it was amazing. We should understand that it was amazing what they did, taking in account that how powerful was the enemy, the Western in general, of course, but especially we could say the Anglo-American imperialism, because the British were still not powerful, but associated with the Americans through the military power, of course, but especially with the relevance of the City of London, together with Wall Street. It was hugely important to impose an economic and financial order that is still not through the pound but through the dollar, but is still a pillar of strength, of imperialistic strength in the world, in spite of that we are changing or transitioning to a multipolar order. So we have been educated. In my country we had a revolution. In the 25th of April 1974. So, and then we became a democratic country, okay? But what was the main culture that when I was a teenager, because I was a teenager at that time, it was the American culture. But before that, it was also the American culture. Movies, because movies is a huge component of American propaganda, of the American dominant culture being transformed into the global culture, dominant culture, through these instruments. This is not conspiracy theories, okay? There is no conspiracy about that. That was done openly. There was many things going on, but this was openly. So we became. So we have kind of at least 70, more than that, but at least 70 years, 7 decades of a very old propaganda machine. That is not. You cannot compare it with the communist and socialist, because it is incomparable. The means, the ability to influence, the resources, and everything else. It's no comparison. And that's why one of the reasons why socialism and communism could be defeated, because usually communists and socialists don't have the means, don't have the resources. That's why it's still difficult today to organize and unite and have movements, strong movements, because people are divided. That's how successful the capitalist order, the capitalist elites are able to control society, because they can create divisions. They have the resources. They control the resources. They control the means. They control the media. And they are all everywhere in the so-called alternative media, in the digital world, okay? They are everywhere. There is no such thing as alternative media. There is people trying to tell the truth and people trying to manipulate you. That's what it is. On the left, on the right, it doesn't matter. That's what you have. In so-called alternative media, there are two groups. The ones that try to tell the truth with their best ability, and the ones that try to do the opposite. They try to manipulate you for some reason, whatever reason, for their own interests, for political ideology, whatever it is. That's how it works. So, and the few, again, always the same thing. The few that try to tell the truth are always persecuted, or at least most of the times, and ridicularized and ostracized and everything else. And that's how it works, and how it has been working always, because in a class-based society, power needs to control the discourse, needs to control the narratives, needs to tell the stories in a way that make your reality acceptable. You are being exploited. Your life is meaningless because you have to accept a social, economic, and political order that doesn't allow you to grow, that doesn't allow you to be a really true, free individual and person. But they need to make that reality acceptable, that you accept it. That's why they want to justify. They justify it no matter. They use all means possible to justify it. So we need to see, to look, to read through different lenses, not because we need to do our research, because it's about our lives, it's about the lives of our children and grandchildren, and please do not accept that there are people now, the tech oligarchs are trying to sell a technocracy, you know. They are trying to sell techno-fascism. That's what they are trying to sell. They are trying to tell us that technology is more efficient in controlling our lives, in making the political decisions. Okay, you want the politics to be replaced by technology because technology knows better. I mean, we need to democratize politics, not to transform politics into a technocracy. It's not going to save us. It's going to enslave us. It's going to transform our world in a madhouse, in a techno-fascist, transhumanist madhouse. I mean, these people. These people are very delusional. They are very dangerous because they are very delusional. And they don't like democracy. That's why they want to impose a technocracy on us. They don't like to share. They don't like to have a system that serves us all. You know? An economy of sufficiency for all of us. Not an economy where a few control everything and then they can have all the toys that they want and they can decide who deserves what. No, we should decide not only what our society and economy should look like, but also who deserves to be, we always have to have people representing us. In spite that we can have participatory democracy and participatory economics, and we can have a completely different, we can organize our economies in a completely different way, but nevertheless, we will need a complex society, complex systems need, we are required to have people representing us, not because of their expertises, but because we need a functional society and a functional economy. So we cannot just have everything, and it's not about nor centralization, not absolute centralization, nor absolute decentralization. We need to find out a way that the system is functional, but cannot be usurped by certain groups. That's the problem. That's why I always quote Frederick Bastiat, because it's one, for me, it's one of the most important quotes that came across me. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in society, through the course of time, they will create a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it, which means that we can never allow a group of men, or even a single man or woman, to have the power to dictate how a system should be organized. We are always looking for leaders. Leaders are not supposed to take decisions. They are not to take decisions. They are there to serve us. They are there to implement the programs that are decided by us. They are not there to control us. They are not there to dictate how our life should be lived. But do not make the mistake to think that the problem is government. We need a government. We need a state. That's the state. Politics is the only way to, not education, but politics is a social equalizer. Politics is a social equalizer, and the government and the state is the one has the responsibility to make it function. So do not allow people to demonizing the state and the government is part of the game. It's part of the game of dividing to conquer, dividing to control, and we need to understand it. So we need the representatives for sure, but representatives with limited power, that we can democratically control them. We might need a certain hierarchy, but an horizontal hierarchy. Because if we lose the ability to control the narratives and to control the social system, the social institutions that are structural for our society and economy, then we become powerless. We lose political agency. And by losing political agency, we lose economic agency. So, and also another point that is to understand the role of money. I think I don't remember the quote. I think it's a Rothschild quote, give me the power. I mean, I'm not. Do not quote me on that, but I will try to say it. Give me the power to control money, and I care not who governs or something like that. Which means that if you have the power of the issuance, if you control the money issuance, if you control the money, if you are the one that has the control to provide credit to the economy, if we have a debt-based economy, and that debt-based economy is privatized, money becomes a private asset. Money becomes not only an economic tool, but becomes a financial weapon, becomes a political weapon and a financial weapon against the majority. So this is another point that needs to be deeply, and again, it needs to be understood in transcontextual terms. This is a complex system society that we need to understand. This have an holistic approach of this understanding of how the world really works. And we put these bits and pieces together as an organized perception, as an organized narrative to understand reality. I don't pretend that I'm able to do it. I just pretend to have a participatory discussion, to put it out there in order that we all can, as many as possible, discuss it, debate it, based on intellectual honesty, not any kind of primacy, not any kind of superiority, intellectual superiority or intellectual hubris or whatever. No, just put it aside. It's just about discussing debating ideas, not debating people. Always debate ideas, never debate people. That's nobody. We do not stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of the poor, of the destitute, on nature, on the indigenous peoples. That's where the wealthy stand. The wealthy stand. It's not about trickle down. It's about standing on the shoulders of the ones that are always blamed for everything, and called losers, and called the useless hitters, and whatever what kind of euphemisms they use to detract the people that the lower classes. Let's put it this way. This is what matters. We need to understand this in a deeply holistic way, not by looking for being famous or because we want our name to be in the history annals or whatever it is. It's just about an intellectual discovery. It's that we try to defy what is established. We try to try to defy our own convictions, try to advance our understanding. That's what it is about. And this needs to be a collective process. We cannot achieve anything alone, not by being atomized or tribalized or being isolated. We cannot. The enemy is too powerful and organized, and they know much better. They understand class war. We do not understand it, but the wealthy, they understand it. That's why they are always waging war against us. That's why they use propaganda. That's why they use the PR industrial complex and the academic complex and the media complex, the infotainment complex, to dominate us, to control the narratives, to assure that most of us never get it, never understand the core of the problems, the roots of the problems. So, what I'm trying to do is to give some food for thought, for deep analysis, transcontextual analysis, systemic analysis. I mean, I try to avoid framing. Of course, it's impossible, because I know framing is always a distortion. We need to use framing, but we also need to understand that by framing we are already distorting. We are already having a certain manipulation, and we need to understand it. So I honestly, I try my best. Of course, I'm biased. Of course, I am. My analysis has mistakes. Because it's not about me. I am the one that is having these thoughts, but it's just for a participatory discussion, to put the ideas out there, not because they are more important than the other people's ideas, but because it is. Most of the time we don't even have, I mean, I'm talking about myself, I do not even have the opportunity to discuss those topics with real people, you know, among friends or family or whatever. So I need this talking, my walking is part of my life. But it's also kind of a public exchange, you know. That's how I see it. It's not about my ego. It's about that I think we need to have these discussions, and if you do not have any other form, so you have to put it out there. Maybe it reaches somebody. Maybe it helps the someone to also okay, I should also engage in this kind of research and personal engagement, okay, in understanding, having a different perspective, looking at things through a different prism, through different glasses, you know. Do not accept that, never, it's never about authorities or saviors or, or wise people. No, it's about knowledge, and the knowledge is a collective creation. Okay? It is important that we understand the notion of collective, community, interdependency, and solidarity, of course, and reciprocity, because we need economics of sufficiency based on reciprocity as part of a social and ecological political economy for an ecological, holistic, ecological civilization. And we deeply need to understand it. For as long as we still are humans, before we become lost, totally transhumanized. You machines, transformed into machines, merged with machines. Because they will naturalize, that's the thing. Before the reality happens, they prepare us for it, okay? They prepare the narratives, they naturalize, they normalize the discourse, they change the discourse, they change the concept, they introduce new concepts, they make them part of the dominant narratives. And then when the reality comes, we already are in it, culturally and ideologically. So we are it's much more, it is the process by which they make us accept what is unacceptable. And that is done always in every, that's why we are going to have fascism, and especially techno-fascism, because they are preparing us for it. They are ideologically and culturally preparing us for that reality. And then we will not fight back, because we are already mentally colonized to accept it. And that it's another aspect of our reality. They use all sorts of tricks, That's they have a lot of tools in the toolbox, in the propaganda toolbox, that has become very sophisticated. Diversity is not anymore progressive politics, and progressive culture is not anymore, or pluralistic is not anymore. It's not about democracy. It's about dividing us. Unfortunately, pluralism and diversity, ideological cultural diversity and cultural pluralism and all that, it is more and more about dividing us, tribalizing us, instrumentalizing us, in order that we do not by any means organize and unite. They do not want us by any means that we have a comprehensive understanding of the roots of the problems, and we fight back and we uprise and we get back or get the control of the narratives, or at least we have narratives that can compete with their narratives. That's what we are missing, a comprehensive narrative that is competitive. And by that comprehensive narrative, it can have elements of Marxist elements and other, not only one school of thought. It's not about defending diversity. It's about using the concepts and ideas that, no matter where they come from, we can build a narrative, we can design a narrative that is competitive, that can compete against the dominant narrative that are selling us transhumanism, techno-fascism, technocracy, the tech oligarchy, and the continuation of a system, of a capitalist system, where the primacy of private property and the accumulation, limited accumulation wealth, and economic growth and less economic growth, and the debt-based economy, all this is impossible, is going to transform society, human societies and human civilization into a madhouse, into a dystopian reality that will be in the end, that will collapse. And I think there is no, and what for? And what for? For the continuation of a world controlled by oligarchs and plutocrats. That's what it is for. And that's why we need to understand that this game is not about anything else. That's why the Americans wanted hegemony. That's what the Pax Americana was about. And the project for the 21st century. And the Paul Wolfowitz doctrine. And everything. It was about designing an international order that would make it impossible for any nation or a group of nations, alliance, to defy the American empire, the dollar hegemony. You know, that was the idea of a total control. Not about, forget about global government. It was about global governance. A neo-colonial form of control. And that's what these people want. That's what for the permanent bureaucracy and the deep state exists for. To create this reality, which now is it's in jeopardy, but it was the idea behind it. So it's not about democracy, it's not about freedom, it's exactly the opposite. It's about fascism, and it's about control. And that's why we need to design a narrative, or more than one, but a unified narrative that can compete and can defeat the dominant narrative. Because if we do not do it, we cannot organize to fight against it for another civilization, for an ecological, holistic civilization. Okay? So, this is all for today. Thank you for listening. I'll be back soon.